Hi everyone, it's Andy from Hobby Headquarters, and today we're going to be building the Trumpeter 1/35 scale high side gondola to go along with our diorama that we're going to be producing for the Stug III and the rail car. So let's get started on it. The first thing we're going to take a look at is the Trumpeter track. And the reason the first thing we're going to do on that is because we have to make sure that it's going to match up to the Dragon track, because if they don't, there's no diorama going to be made. First thing I'll point out is the way the Trumpeter molds this, it's molded as rather one large piece. So when you go to put the rail actually in, it slides in super easy, and just that easy, and it's done. The funny thing is the Dragon one took about 15 minutes to get together because each one of the sprues were not sprues, but each one of the railroad ties were flopping all over the place. So now this is the Dragon piece that we haven't painted yet, and looks like, yeah, it's going to. Now the railroad ties are a little bit fatter on the Trumpeter one, but the rails are going to match up perfectly. So when we go to do our diorama, I just kept picturing that it was going to end up something like, you know, be that far off up on the top like that or something, just that it wouldn't work out. But nope, the tracks are going to work out great. The little difference in size and tie, once we put the ballast and paint them all up, I don't think we'll notice at all. And if we do eventually build the locomotive will be a Trumpeter as well, so it'll add on to the front, so you won't really notice it at all. So now that I've gotten the tracks out of the way, because of the type of kit this is, with not an abundance of parts, I've gone ahead and I've started cutting off all the parts and sanding them now. The benefit of doing this is that you'll have everything done at once. You're in sanding mode, just get it all done. The parts are very identifiable, so you're not worried about, oh, what part is this that I just messed up on. But so I'm going to do the whole lower portion of sanding and getting all ready so we can just build as one straight shot. So let's get started on that. I went ahead and built one side of the train over here, and now I'm going to show you a little thing that I encountered. And the reason I usually do this is so if I do run into any problems, I can fix them and point them out to you guys. One thing I noticed is everything fits really well as it goes together. The only problem I ran into is these little pegs right here are supposed to go through this piece as well as this, the leaf springs, but they are way too fat for them. So every one of these I had to just lightly whittle out a little bit with my razor blade knife. And once you do that just a little bit on both sides, they fit right together really well. You could try to trim this down, but that's just asking for trouble for breaking something. So let's put all this together now. Okay, a couple other quick things I'll point out to you too while you're building the suspension part. When you go to put these end caps on, you'll notice that one side has a little bit of a rounded edge. That is the part that faces down when you're assembling this piece. So that way the bolts all line up in there. And then another little tip I'll show you is one nice thing that they've done that Dragon had as multiple pieces are the brakes on this system. Now when you go to attach them, the way they fit in here, there is a little peg, but it has a lot of play inside of it. So when you're about ready to glue that down, then you should have one of the wheels ready so you can put the wheel into place so that the brakes are not too small when they dry, and then you'll never get the wheels inside there. And the brakes just will glue right in like that. And as they start to set up, just have your wheel assembly ready to plug in, and then just put a little bit of pressure on them so they're close but not actually touching. At first I wasn't going to glue the wheels into place so they would actually spin, since we have these guide rods, but there's quite a bit going on trying to get all of these pieces mated up at the same time, so I just decided to put a little bit of glue inside there. I think that'll keep everything a little bit more secure. Then we'll just stack this up on here. I've already put glue on the inside of the brake pieces, so just a matter of lining up all of those pieces now. And then letting that dry. One other thing I'll point out to you too is, if you're going to make this into a diorama like I am, you want to not follow the instructions on the Trumpeter kit and actually make this in a way that will actually work, because they just want you just to glue it all together. This way it'll completely work, and we hook it up to the other car. And the way we make it work is, you're only going to glue this 1/2 of the block. So you put a little glue on either side. That. Actually, get that piece has to be turned that way. And what you want to do is just let that set up just like that, and then you'll be able to snap this on this side without glue, and it'll be able to function inside there. And this piece too, you want to be very careful with that you don't glue it too far in, because then it will not, when you push it up, the hook will be in the way. So if it's like that, if you push that all the way in, it won't go all the way up because of the hook. So we're going to let that dry for a little while so we don't mess it up anymore, but just to give you an idea what you're going to look forward to when you're building it. One other minor thing I decided to do on this too, the crack in between this right here is not fitting the greatest, so I'm just gonna brush a little glue on here and then taking a little piece of strip styrene, I'm gonna glue that into place just so we don't get any light bleed through when we have the car flipped over. You can see it's kind of a bigger crack. We'll be able to weather most of that away. We just don't want any light showing through on it though. Well, there it fits on the track. We haven't put the sides on yet. Now you can also leave this as a flatbed car, and now this is painted with the wrong colors of course, but you could actually even load like on an Opel Blitz on it, and you can see how it'll line up nicely with the other model. So let's start working on the sides and then get to painting. Okay, now that we have final assembly done, we're going to paint the entire item with XF69, the NATO black. This is going to be our shadow coat, and we're going to do the black and white technique on this as well as like we did the Stormgeschütz. What that's going to do is going to make lighter centers when we go to do the final coat of XF22, which is to me is like German gray. Now comes the white coat, and we're going to just do the highlighted areas, preferably like the middle of the wood. And for some reason, the Tamiya XF2, the white, I was having a little problem with it spitting just when I first started the airbrush up. But that paint just fades away. Also going to do a random white in the middle just so we have some faded technique on the inside of the boxcar as well. Now as we apply the final coat, I kind of do it in like a round random pattern, and this will give you kind of the mottled effect. After thinking about it for a while, I decided to try to do the hairspray idea on the sides of the wood to make the wood look like it was scratched up. So I went back over and painted some multicolors of brown, so when we scrape it off, the wood will look like variations of color. To set up for the hairspray technique, you first have to seal the entire model with clear coat, lacquer clear coat, so that the hairspray won't combine with the other paint that's underneath. What I've decided to do too is I'm thinking about building a third gondola car, but without the sides on it. And I have this this Opel Blitz that you might remember that was done in North Africa, and I want to put a Opel on top of the flatbed car. So rather than build another kit, which I have just sitting in my display case, I took the Opel that I already had, and we're just going to repaint it. And we're going to do the same black and white technique that we did on all the other early German World War II items. And then we'll decal it up, and I'll show you what it looks like on the flatbed, and then if I decided to put it on, I already have the vehicle built. This is a great way to repurpose models, that if you have extra models that aren't going into a diorama or just a little bit different, rather than building another one up, it's sitting there, it's just a matter of repainting it. I've gone ahead and I've clear coated both of these pieces right here with the lacquer and let that dry. And then after that, I put 2 big coats of hairspray on it. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go over and paint the German gray again, get it all done, and then we're going to try to scratch off some of it to make it look kind of beat up. We'll also go ahead and do that on the flatbed, but I first want to see how it's going to look on this, see if I like it, and if not, I will just paint the flatbed to match the other car. And you can kind of see what the Opel will look like in the back. Now I know it seemed like multiple steps, redundant steps I should say, when we did the black and white on the side, and normally I probably wouldn't have done that, but I decided, like I said, halfway through that we're going to do the hairspray technique on the side. So yeah, just skip those initial black and white on the wood. One other thing before we do the hairspray is I've added a little German gray to the RLM 22 gray, and we're just going to lightly go over some of the edges right here, some of the metal stanchions, just to darken them up a little bit. You don't have to be super careful with that. We're just trying to darken up and differentiate between the two before we do the hairspray. Excuse me, before the scraping on it. Okay, just like we did on the other rail car, after we've done all of our dry brushing, it looks a little mottled right there. We're just going to take some of our Vallejo washes, some different colors. I'm using the maroon brown, European dust, and a few other brown colors, and we're just going to start individually picking up boards and putting on thin coats of it. And this will change the tone of each one of the boards, so it all doesn't look like one big giant piece of wood, but rather the individual boards that it's actually made up of. And you want to put it on, but really work it in, so it's not such a harsh change in the way the colors look. And you can mix up the different colors, and also not doing the entire board too. You can just do one end of the board and kind of blend it in softly all the way to the edge, and you see how it's darker on one side. The best way to get a feel for something like that is I just started looking at wooden fences and some old modern day box cars that that have wooden floors, and how wood tarnishes and tones. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for the entire piece right here, and it's really up to you how bad you want to do it, if you want a little bit of it done or a much more fresh look. I'm going to make it kind of like the other one that we had built earlier, which is over here in the background, but different enough that it'll look like a completely different piece. So I'm going to do that right now. Another nice way to do it too is by taking some of the red oxide color, and I know it looks a little bright when we first put it on here, but picking out just one board, just making sure you do most of the board, and before it dries, taking a wider dry brush, just start to blend it and pull it through. And you can see as it dries the effect we're getting on the boards here. I lightly went over with my old toothbrush dipped in water, and just, even though the hairspray was on, I didn't want really a chipping effect. I kind of wanted this fading effect, which I think actually turned out pretty well, where the wood is starting to show through, but you still see quite a bit of paint, and you wouldn't see the chipping as much as the fading of the paint coming through. And also the interior is starting to dry and come along pretty well. Now, I'm thought about gluing this down, but like I said, I could use it as the flatbed gondola as well. As the flatbed holding the other truck, but I might just build another one. I've gone ahead and put the decals on now and clear coated over them, and then just did a small little wash in between some of the areas here. You might be able to see some of the dirt areas through there, and the nice fading effect that we got from the black and white technique, and then the fading technique we got from the hairspray right there. The interior is finally dried now from the different types of washes that we put on that, and you can see we've done it pretty close to what we did on the other rail car. It's a little bit lighter, but I think it'll make a nice contrast when they're side by side. So I'm not going to do any more work on this until we start making the diorama. So thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned because we have more videos coming.